This is the Lockheed Martin State Route 72, an aircraft so fast it can cross oceans before the enemy even blinks. First appearing in Top Gun, Maverick and nicknamed the son of the Blackbird, it's the hypersonic successor to the legendary State Route 71 Blackbird. But what makes this aircraft so terrifyingly advanced, and why are rival nations like China and Russia scrambling to catch up? The United States government doesn't like to show its technological advancements in front of the whole world until it's too late for anyone to do anything about it. So we would assume that the work on State Route 72 DARKSTAR began way before it appeared in the movie. To be successful, the State Route 72 DARKSTAR had to meet three specific objectives. 1. Travel at speeds higher than or equal to Mach 6. 2. Travel above 880,000 feet for extended periods of time. And 3. Stay completely hidden from advanced tracking and radar systems. In order to achieve this, Lockheed Martin not only had to have a completely redesigned aircraft but also build a new engine and tackle the associated challenges of traveling at speeds 6 times the speed of sound, like surface and cockpit heating. Reports indicate that Lockheed Martin had been working with Aerojet Rocketdyne since 2006 to build an engine that could propel an aircraft to Mach 6 using scramjet technology. The scramjet engine uses fast-moving air to first compress and then combust. However, scramjets only provide good performance above Mach 2.5. Therefore, the State Route 72 had to use another engine type at lower speeds. It was reported that like the State Route 71, the State Route 72 would also be fitted with a turbine-based combined cycle engine to be able to switch between turbine and scramjet engines as needed. This system would be fed a shared inflow of air through the nozzle but with individual airflow paths. To fully experiment with this system's feasibility with the State Route 72, NASA allowed Lockheed Martin to study the existing turbine propulsion systems with a contract worth $892,000 in December of 2014. At such high speeds, the material used for the body construction would also have to be superior to that of its closest match, the State Route 71. Data from State Route 71 flights indicate that the surface temperature of the aircraft reached higher than 500 degrees Celsius in flight at speeds greater than Mach 2.5. This temperature would be sufficient to melt any conventional aircraft building materials. Needless to say, the State Route 72 DARKSTAR would have to use lightweight materials in its construction which are capable of tolerating extreme temperatures and shear stress of Mach 6. Ceramic titanium alloys and metal mixes would likely be chosen for this purpose, as they have been used in space shuttles flying above Mach 20. Another variable that comes into play is the few rumors of the State Route 72 being unmanned, which was dismissed by the project leader of the State Route 72 program, Brian Herberger, in a hint that he dropped when being interviewed by the YouTuber Sam Eolm about the DARKSTAR's ability to fly unmanned, claiming it had the capability of doing both based on mission requirements. Now, of course, speed is everything when it comes to hypersonic spycraft like the State Route 72, but it has to have the ability to drop bombs and strike targets to be able to fully utilize these capabilities. Any normal bomb would simply be unstable at hypersonic speeds, and Lockheed Martin announced in 2018 that the State Route 72 would be fitted with hypersonic missiles and be able to take its first flight in 2025 while starting active duty as soon as 2030. But why is the State Route 72 DARKSTAR coming nearly 30 years later than the State Route 71 Blackbird? The prototype used in this film was a result of a joint venture of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works division and Paramount Pictures designers. This is the same Skunk Works division that worked on and finalized the design of the State Route 71 Blackbird back in the 1950s. The final model of the DARKSTAR, designed by Daniel Simon after many iterations, later displayed in the same movie, was so realistic that Chinese intelligence agencies reportedly started conducting satellite surveys, further investigating the reality of the State Route 72, in part with its similarities with the mock-up listed on Lockheed's website. Wouldn't that seem like too much attention to a science fiction film? Well, given the idea that the State Route 71 Blackbird exists and holds the world record for the fastest manned aircraft, which still scares many foes of the United States, the concept of its new generation will surely turn heads and roll eyes, serving as a reminder of how close fiction is to reality in today's world. Even so, is the State Route 72 DARKSTAR concept different from the State Route 71 Blackbird? Lockheed Martin designed and built the State Route 71 Blackbird in the 1960s, and since then it has held itself up as the fastest manned air-breathing aircraft in the world, going up to Mach 3.2, high supersonic speeds at the time, which have still been difficult to beat for adversaries even with today's technology. Even though some aircraft can reach that speed, none can cruise at this speed for long. But why was it needed? Well, in simple words, the US had to have eyes on its enemies without them even knowing it was there. But with advancements in radar and tracking technology, the US had to go hypersonic to understand why the State Route 72 DARKSTAR had to be developed. We have to know hypersonics and their role in modern warfare. Hypersonic jets and missiles are already here and constantly being worked on by Russia and China. The race for advanced arms has just begun, and understandably the United States wouldn't want to be left out in the blue. Usually, anything that goes more than Mach 5 is considered to be hypersonic, and with modern defense systems, the State Route 71 simply couldn't keep up with the tech advancements, which is a big reason why it was retired from service in 1998. So Lockheed Martin's State Route 72 DARKSTAR program had to be surfaced, and we recently saw its concept being publicly acknowledged. Even though it was just an idea from a movie, it was taken seriously enough by US rivals around the world to start gathering data about this new aircraft, showcasing the gravity of the US's arms capability and its effects on the world. What exactly does State Route 72 have that makes it so blatantly threatening to US rivals? Well, the State Route 72 program has seen multiple development challenges, and the technology needed to propel an aircraft 6 times the speed of sound is simply too complex to be implemented easily. In November 2013, the U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff General Mark Welsh stated that the service needed a hypersonic aircraft that would significantly reduce the reaction time for any adversary and that the Air Force was interested in regaining its hypersonic superiority. By December 2013, this statement changed and the Air Force declined to fund the State Route 72 program, claiming it had never reached out to Lockheed Martin for the State Route 72. Pressed by budget cuts and other factors, the U.S. military chose to develop the Northrop Grumman RQ-10 unmanned aerial vehicle to conduct its intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance (ISR) missions, as it was much cheaper and less complex than the State Route 72 program, but still kept so confidential that not a single image exists of the RQ-10 UAV. Work on the State Route 72 was then carried out in complete confidentiality until 2015, when NASA awarded the contract to study dual-mode engines to achieve speeds greater than Mach 6 and envisioned the State Route 72 as the perfect ISR and strike platform. By 2017, Lockheed Martin had a complete R&D of the State Route 72 DARKSTAR, claiming it could get started on development by the early 2020s. In 2018, Lockheed Vice President Jack O'Banion further entailed the integration of modern technologies in the State Route 72 DARKSTAR program like computer modeling and 3D printing, which could potentially solve the problems that would have made it impossible to build an State Route 72 in the last 5 years. It goes without saying that there was absolutely no public information about the State Route 72 program, and officially it just didn't exist, until it got renewed public interest after its appearance in Top Gun: Maverick. Complete secrecy was, and still is, the key that has enabled the US government to innovate and shock the world with its superiority in arms and capability. But what about the current status of the program and what's at stake for the United States? Currently, there have been no documented flights or tests of the State Route 72, but it is likely because of the confidentiality of the program. For all we know, the aircraft could be in the initial production stage or test flights. However, the hints being dropped by Lockheed Martin now and then suggest that the US has never been out of its #1 spot in the hypersonic weapons industry. With significant improvements in the US military's technological capabilities, they race to own a hypersonic aircraft capable of penetrating enemy airspace at high speeds and completing ISR and strike missions, and the US's global position. Russia and China are most likely to take a competitive stance with their own versions of hypersonic jets. Throughout the past, there have been multiple hypersonic weapons and UAVs that most defense systems have gotten used to, employing anti-surveillance systems and high-speed tracking systems, making them less effective. The basic principle that can single-handedly defeat these systems is speed, and lots of it. And the State Route 72 does exactly that. At Mach 6, it can travel thousands of kilometers within seconds, giving its enemies a fraction of the time to react or even acknowledge its presence. And one thing we can be sure of is the United States being the only capable country in the world of operating this aircraft due to its fearless and effective strategies. Whether good or bad, only time will tell, but State Route 72 and projects like it are perhaps the future of hypersonic warfare until someone can figure out how to travel at speeds greater than the speed of light. Bye for now.